Hello, glad to see you on the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
I always imagined they'd be there. Even if they didn't say much, even if they didn't clap the loudest or smile the widest, just there. Two simple chairs with white cards labeled Mr. and Mrs. Abrams in gold font, sitting dead center in the fifth row. I reserved them myself. I thought, maybe this time, they'd show up. Maybe a lifetime of being overlooked could be reversed by showing up once when it mattered. Not for a dance recital or some high school thing, but for this, my moment, my career, my name on a plaque. The culmination of 12 years in a brutal corporate system, late nights, early flights, weekends lost in spreadsheets and slide decks. The firm's Innovator of the Year award, only given once every 5 years, to someone who's changed the whole damn game. This wasn't participation. This was winning. And all I wanted was for them to see it. But those seats were empty. Not late. Not stuck in traffic. Just empty. As if they'd never intended to come at all. At first, I convinced myself something urgent had come up, car trouble, maybe, or mom's vertigo. But 10 minutes before I was called on stage, my phone buzzed in my clutch. Maddie. Posting on Instagram, smiling wide, glass of rose raised in a sun-drenched vineyard, like she was in a Hallmark movie. The caption read, "Why not celebrate today?" with a wink emoji and a location tag in Napa. I stared at that photo so long I missed the MC calling my name the first time. By the time I reached the stage, the applause had already started to fade. I smiled anyway, tight-lipped and practiced, because that's what women like me do. We smile when we'd rather scream. We pose while bleeding under our blazers. I thanked the board, gave a 2-minute speech I'd rehearsed for weeks, and waved at the crowd of half-strangers in suits. I didn't say their names. Didn't even glance at the fifth row. Because I already knew. They weren't just late. They'd chosen wine over me. Back at my seat, everyone leaned in to congratulate me. My boss, Greg, clapped me on the back like I'd just won a Super Bowl, and someone from the board slipped me a card about a speaking engagement in Chicago. It should have felt like a win, but all I felt was the growing weight of those 2 empty seats. I'd always known Maddie was the favorite. Even when we were kids and she couldn't spell banana, and I was reading at a 9th grade level in 4th grade, it was her they took pictures of. Her they clapped for. Her they told stories about to the neighbors. She was shiny, loud, likable. A blonde firecracker in a pink tutu. I was quieter, bookish, the one who didn't need as much attention. That was the phrase Mom used. Rachel's so independent. She doesn't need us the same way Maddie does. That line stayed with me, like a splinter you can't dig out. I let the night carry on around me, sipping watered-down white wine, smiling when people approached, acting like it was fine. Like I was fine. The photographer came around, snapping shots of the winners, and I posed with the award like it meant something. But the truth was, it didn't. Not anymore. Because when I looked into the lens, all I could think about was how I didn't matter enough for them to even lie about why they couldn't come. After dinner, there was dancing. Old jazz standards and newer pop songs covered in swing tempo. I stayed seated. Someone offered me a dance and I declined. The heel of my right pump had snapped slightly walking up the stage, and I was afraid it'd give out completely. That was the metaphor, wasn't it? All polished on the outside, but the foundation cracking. The worst part? People noticed. I could feel their eyes darting toward those 2 empty seats. Most didn't say anything, but I could hear the whispers her family's not here, or thought she said they were coming. I could feel the pity hanging in the air like fog. And then Greg, who'd had just enough whiskey to get bold, leaned over during dessert and said it, all casual, like he wasn't driving a knife straight through my ribs. "Your parents not proud of you?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just smiled that same tight smile, the one I've had since I was 12, and realized applause would never come from the people who raised me. I excused myself and walked slowly toward the hallway, heels clicking against marble. I didn't cry. That would have made it real. Instead, I went to the restroom, locked the stall, and stared at the Instagram post again. Maddie had added a story, clinking glasses with Mom and Dad, laughing in slow motion. Dad's arm was around her. Mom was holding a little plate of cheese and crackers. They looked happy, relaxed, celebratory, and not even a shred of guilt in their eyes. I didn't react. Not yet. I just saved the video to my phone, because something was building right then and there. Not a tantrum. Not some petty, impulsive explosion. No, this was slower. Smarter. Like a chess game in my head. I was done being the quiet achiever. I was done watching them toast to someone else's life while mine got a passing mention. They skipped my big day. They chose to drink wine with Maddie instead. And soon, I'd make sure they remembered exactly what they missed. It's funny what your brain chooses to keep, what it decides to box up neatly, label with a year, and shove into the dusty corners of your memory. Some days, I can't even remember my coworker's last name, but I can tell you the exact shade of pink Maddie's cheer uniform was in 9th grade. Bubblegum. Bright. With a sequined C for Centerville Cougars stitched right above her heart. I was 13 and already taking advanced chemistry at the local community college, but that year, all my parents could talk about was how Maddie nailed her back handspring at homecoming. That, apparently, was history in the making. You know what they said when I got into that chemistry course 2 years early? Just don't overwork yourself, honey. School isn't everything. And that would have been fine, I guess, if it were true. But when Maddie got a C+ in biology and managed to bring it up to a B-, you'd think she discovered a cure for cancer. Mom bought her a little cake. Dad took us all out to dinner. And there I was, with straight A's, eating cold lasagna and wondering what it actually took to impress these people. That night, after the award ceremony, I went back to my apartment. I didn't cry. Crying gives people too much power, and I had spent my entire adult life pretending that things didn't bother me. But inside, something shifted. A dull ache I'd trained myself to ignore suddenly flared up like a pulled muscle. I stood in my kitchen in full makeup and heels, staring at the dim light above the stove, and remembered this one day. I must have been maybe 17 when I got called in to meet with the principal. I thought I was in trouble, but instead, she handed me a certificate for academic excellence and said I was in the running for a statewide award. That was the first time anyone outside my family had looked at me like I mattered. When I came home and showed my parents, Mom barely looked up from her knitting. "That's nice, honey. Put it on the fridge if you want." Meanwhile, Maddie was sobbing in the bathroom because her prom dress didn't fit. Guess who got the attention that night? So when I said earlier that they missed my award speech after 14 years of working on this project, that's, what, almost 2 decades? I guess you could say I was used to it. And yeah, I know it's not actually 20 years, relax. Don't blow a gasket in the comments. Still, I tried brushing it off like I always did. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on the edge of my couch like a woman who had won, who had arrived, who should be proud, but I couldn't stop replaying that damn Instagram story. I watched it 5 times. 6, maybe? The clink of glasses, Maddie's voice shrill with glee, Dad doing that weird little laugh he saves for when he's had just enough to drink, but not enough to forget what he's saying. Mom saying, "To our girl." And I think that was what hit me the hardest. To our girl. They didn't mean me. Maddie had always been the our girl. Even when she wrecked Dad's car in senior year and blamed it on black ice, even when I told them I saw her texting while driving and she screamed that I was lying, they believed her. They always believed her. I was the jealous sister. The overachiever who didn't know how to relax. The one who never needed much. The one who'd be fine on her own. It wasn't just high school. It was birthdays, holidays, moments that should have belonged to everyone. When Maddie got her braces off, they threw her a party. When I got my wisdom teeth out, they dropped me off at the clinic and told me to Uber home. When she got engaged briefly to some real estate guy who was clearly cheating, Mom offered her grandma's ring. When I got promoted to VP, they didn't even call. So yeah, watching them toast to her while I stood in heels under the spotlight alone, that wasn't new. But seeing that wine glass, the one Maddie held so delicately, like a trophy, that glass had my initials engraved on it. RLA. Rachel Lynn Abrams. It was a set I'd bought last year for their anniversary, had them custom made, expensive as hell. I ordered 4, with the idea we'd use them at some dinner, all of us together. Of course, they never invited me. Just Maddie. And there she was, holding my gift, sipping from it like she owned it, like she'd never once been told no, like everything just landed in her hand and all she had to do was smile. I paused the video right there, zoomed in, saw the monogram shining under the Napa sunlight. My glass. My initials. My damn life. And in that moment, I didn't want revenge, not the kind you scream or throw plates over. I wanted something colder, cleaner. I wanted her to feel what I'd felt for 30 years, forgotten, second, invisible. And if I played this right, if I kept my smile just tight enough, if I held back just long enough, I could give her that feeling. Not with a fight, not with a tantrum, but with one sentence. One moment. Delivered in front of the people she needed the most. Because when you've never had a cheer squad, you learn how to deliver your lines for maximum effect. And I had just the stage in mind. The second award came like a strange aftershock, something I hadn't expected and wasn't even sure I wanted, like the universe doubling down on irony. Innovator of the Year was already mine, carved into a glass tower now sitting heavy in my bag, but then, just as dessert plates were being cleared, the MC returned to the podium and tapped the mic like we were all children waiting for story time. His voice boomed out across the ballroom, words polished and practiced, and now the final recognition of the evening, our Leadership Legacy Award. I didn't flinch at first, thinking it would go to someone older, someone who looked like they played golf and gave lectures about synergy. But then he said my name. Just like that. No warning. No build-up. I was still swallowing coffee when the spotlight hit me square in the face. People applauded louder this time. Maybe the wine had kicked in, or maybe they felt guilty for missing the depth of my earlier speech. I stood up slow, legs a little stiff from sitting too long in heels not meant for standing ovations. As I walked toward the stage again, I caught glimpses of faces, some genuinely happy for me, some politely clapping because that's what you do when success becomes repetitive. And then I saw her, Maddie, tucked into the back of the room near the emergency exit, a few tables away from the parents she'd borrowed from me for the day. She wasn't clapping. Her arms were crossed, her chin tilted slightly down like she thought she was invisible, like maybe if she didn't make eye contact, I wouldn't know she was there. But I did. I saw her before the lights even shifted. I knew she'd show up eventually. Maddie never missed a chance to be at the center of someone else's attention, especially when there was a chance to feel superior. And yet, for once, she looked small, uncertain, like someone had cut the spotlight that had always followed her around. I stepped up to the mic and took a breath so deep I felt it in my stomach. The ballroom went still, the kind of quiet that isn't just respectful, but anticipatory, like the room knew something was about to change. And it was. Just not in the way they thought. Thank you, I started, my voice calm and even, like I wasn't balancing 30 years of rage on the edge of every syllable. This means more than you know. Really. Not because I needed another trophy or another line on my resume. Not even because the glass is etched beautifully and it'll look great on my shelf next to the others. A soft chuckle rippled across the room. Safe humor. Polite. Exactly what they expected. I smiled back like I meant it. I'm honored, I continued, glancing briefly at the board members in the front row, but more than that, I'm grateful for the silence. The room stilled again, the laughter dying faster than it had come. You see, when you spend your life without a cheer squad, you learn how to hear your own applause. You learn to clap for yourself in empty rooms. You learn to keep going when no one's watching. At this point, I could feel people shifting in their chairs. Some smiled tighter, others glanced around as if to gauge whether they were missing the punchline. I didn't let them off the hook. Some of us had to build our own podiums, I said, tones still polite but sharper now. We didn't have the benefit of gold stars on the fridge or front row fans in sparkly sweaters. Some of us had to accept "that's nice, honey" as the loudest praise we'd ever get. I looked directly toward the back of the room, eyes locking on Maddie's even through the dim lighting. And some of us learned that being overlooked doesn't make you invisible, it makes you dangerous. It makes you quiet enough to plan. No one laughed this time. No one breathed either. So tonight, I want to thank the cheer squads that never came, I said, voice finally lifting with something real, something raw. The ones who were too tired, too busy, too distracted to notice when we won. The ones who clapped louder for others while we taught ourselves how to stand taller, how to walk across stages alone. I paused just long enough to let it hurt. Some of us win without cheer squads, I finished, every word a deliberate strike, and some of us learn to clap for ourselves. The applause didn't come right away. There was a half-second of stunned silence before the room finally erupted. The kind of clapping people do when they don't know what else to do. When they're uncomfortable. When they're trying to decide if they've just witnessed something brave or cruel. I stepped back, nodded once, and walked down the stairs, my hands steady despite the shaking that had started somewhere in my chest. I didn't look toward the fifth row this time. I didn't need to. My parents were staring straight ahead, stone-faced, pretending like they didn't understand the references I had embedded in every phrase. But Maddie? She was already on her feet, storming toward the exit in a blur of silk and fury. One hand clenched around her phone, the other pushing past waitstaff like the room was on fire. I caught a glimpse of her face just before the doors closed behind her. Pale, stunned, unarmed. Later, someone said she locked herself in the bathroom and wouldn't come out for 20 minutes. That she wouldn't talk to anyone. That she was crying. I didn't check on her. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally realized, maybe for the first time, that caring had never gotten me anywhere. And besides, the speech wasn't for her. It was for me. And for anyone else who's ever had to clap alone. The hallway outside the women's restroom was colder than I remembered, or maybe it was just the adrenaline wearing off, draining out of my chest in heavy pulses while the aftermath of my speech still clung to the corners of my mind like smoke after a fire. I didn't go after Maddie right away. I stood there for a few minutes with my back to the marble wall, staring at the heavy restroom door like it might suddenly swing open and she'd emerge laughing, tossing her hair like she always did when she wanted to take the edge off a bad moment. But that door didn't move. Not once. And neither did I. At least not until a woman in a red cocktail dress gave me a look and raised her eyebrows in a way that said, "Are you going in or standing guard all night?" That was when I pushed off the wall, walked up to the door, and knocked twice with my knuckles, not soft, not aggressive, just enough to let her know I was there. "Maddie," I said through the door, my voice steady, maybe too steady for what had just happened, "I know you're in there." There was no answer, just the faint rustling of fabric and the occasional sniffle. For a second, I thought maybe she wouldn't say anything at all. But then I heard her voice, thin, raw, stretched tight like a frayed wire, saying, "You humiliated me." I leaned closer, resting one hand on the doorframe. "I didn't say your name," I said, and it was true. I hadn't. Not once. But we both knew the speech wasn't vague. "You didn't have to," she shot back, voice cracking slightly. "Everyone knew exactly who you meant." I let the silence sit for a few seconds. "Good," I finally said, not proud, but not sorry either. Then maybe they'll finally start asking the right questions. There was a bang from inside, like a fist hitting the paper towel dispenser. "You think you're so much better than me, don't you?" she said, and her voice was shaking now, teetering between anger and something else, maybe shame, maybe pain, maybe just the shock of being on the receiving end for once. "No," I said, and I meant it. "I don't think I'm better. I think I was forgotten. And I'm tired of pretending that didn't matter." "You think I asked for any of it?" she fired back. "The attention, the praise, the way they treated me like I was the sun? You think I wanted to be the favorite? Yes, I said quickly, because I wasn't going to lie anymore. Not even to make peace. I think you loved it. I think you bathed in it. I think you let them treat me like background noise because it made your spotlight feel warmer. That hit her. I could tell by the way she went silent again, by the long pause before her voice returned, quieter this time, like it was sinking into her instead of lashing out. You have no idea how much pressure that was, she said, and for the first time, I heard something honest in her words. Being perfect. Staying pretty. Making sure they always had something to brag about. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. The way we had both been performing different roles in the same house and somehow never realized we were part of the same broken script. I would have traded places with you in a heartbeat, I said. You think it's pressure to be the star? Try being the understudy your whole damn life. Try watching your parents cheer louder at your sister's average day than they did at your greatest achievement. Try listening to people call her our girl while you fade into polite silence. I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the heat down my cheeks. I wasn't sobbing, it wasn't that kind of breakdown, but the tears came anyway, slow and private and heavy with years I hadn't let myself acknowledge. You got a cheer squad, I said. I got a pat on the head and told I was strong for not needing anything. More silence. More rustling. A long exhale from behind the door like Maddie was deciding whether to let go or hold the line. You know what the worst part is? I asked, leaning my head gently against the door now, my voice soft. I didn't even want the damn awards. I just wanted them to look at me the way they look at you, like I'm the center of something. Like I matter just because I exist. I could hear her breathing now, short and uneven, like she'd been running in place. You really think they love me more? She asked suddenly, her voice louder now, stronger. And before I could even form a response, before I could tell her the truth, that I didn't know what I thought anymore, the door swung open just wide enough for me to see her face. Tear-streaked. Mascara smeared. Eyes burning with something between accusation and desperation. Then, just as quickly, she slammed it shut again. The sound echoed down the hall like a gunshot. And for the first time in my life, I didn't follow her. I didn't try to fix it. I stood there in that cold hallway, surrounded by cheap bathroom perfume and silence, and I let her sit with it. Because some doors, once closed, are better left unopened. At least for a while. The hotel room smelled like old air and fresh linen, that odd combination of commercial cleanliness and something slightly tired, like too many people had passed through and left parts of themselves behind in the carpet or the corners. I didn't bother turning on the overhead light. I hated that sterile yellow glow that made everything look like it was covered in film. Instead, I kicked off my heels in the doorway, walked barefoot to the minibar, and pulled out a tiny bottle of whatever wine the hotel considered acceptable for guests who forgot they were supposed to celebrate. It wasn't even cold. I twisted off the cap with more force than necessary, poured it into one of the glasses by the sink, and took a sip without checking what it was. Sweet. Cheap. Overly familiar. I sat on the edge of the bed and let my body finally slump the way it had wanted to all night. My blazer was still on. My hair was still curled. The hotel window looked out over a parking garage, not some city skyline like I had imagined when I booked the room. Everything felt like it had shrunk, the room, the night, my resolve. It was like the award, the speech, the moment, all of it had already happened in another life. One where I didn't end up alone, drinking wine out of a bathroom glass in a dress that was suddenly too tight in the ribs. My phone buzzed once and I ignored it. Then again. The second buzz was always the one that got me. That's when you know someone meant it, when they followed up, even with silence in between. I checked the screen, expecting it to be Greg or someone from the firm, maybe even a polite, empty message from the awards committee thanking me for my gracious speech or asking for permission to publish it in the quarterly newsletter. But no, it was from Dad. Next time, give us a heads up, we'll try to make it. I stared at the message for a long time, and not because I didn't understand it. I understood it too well. The subtext screamed through the screen, we forgot. We didn't prioritize. We didn't think it mattered enough to change our plans. There was no apology, no acknowledgement. Just that same half-hearted shrug I'd gotten my whole life, dressed up as casual detachment. And maybe, that was the moment it all turned on me. Because a part of me, a very old, tired part buried under decades of brushed-off slights and holiday table small talk, whispered something I wasn't ready to hear. What if it wasn't them? What if it really was you? What if I had been so obsessed with keeping score that I forgot the game wasn't one-sided? What if my silence all those years didn't read as strength, but distance? What if they thought I didn't need them because I never asked for anything? Never cried in front of them. Never yelled. Never broke down in the kitchen like Maddie did every time she lost a boyfriend or chipped a nail or didn't get into the pageant she wanted. Maddie made noise. Maddie pulled focus. Maddie was easy to react to. Me? I folded my feelings up like laundry and put them away in the dark. And now I was mad that no one had ever opened the drawer? That kind of thought can wreck you if you let it. But I didn't. Not completely. I just stared at the message until my vision blurred. Not from tears. I wasn't crying, not really, but from the exhaustion that comes after the adrenaline runs out. Then I deleted it. Simple as that. One swipe, and it was gone. No reply. No closure. Just silence. I poured the rest of the wine and leaned back against the headboard, remembering things I hadn't let myself revisit in years. Maddie at her sweet 16, blowing out candles while Mom clapped like she was at a Broadway show. Me at 18, standing in the doorway with a full scholarship letter in my hand, and Dad saying, "That's great, Ratch, but can it wait until after the party?" Maddie's party. Always Maddie's moment. Even when it should have been mine. But then there were other memories, fuzzier, harder to categorize. Maddie sitting at the edge of my bed the night her first engagement fell apart, mascara running down her face, whispering, "I can't keep doing this." Me wrapping her in a blanket even though I hadn't said more than 3 sentences to her in weeks. Our mom on the couch after her gallbladder surgery, Maddie holding her hand, me cleaning up the kitchen because someone had to. None of it was black and white. None of it ever is. I took another sip and closed my eyes, the bitterness finally cutting through the sugar. I don't need a cheer squad, I thought. I never did. I needed a family. But winning without one? That tastes stronger than any goddamn Cabernet. The phone slipped from my fingers and fell to the carpet with a soft thud, screen down. I didn't bother picking it up. I let the silence settle again, heavier this time, like a blanket you didn't ask for but can't shake off. But then, just as I started to drift, not into sleep, not really, but into that fog where your mind wanders and your thoughts stop forming full sentences, the screen lit up from the floor. A message. I reached down slowly, hand brushing against the cold phone, heart suddenly louder than the hum of the air vent overhead. It was from Maddie. What you said hurt, but I think maybe I needed to hear it. I stared at the words for a long time. Then I placed the phone face down again, poured the last of the wine into the glass, and drank it slowly, as if I finally understood what it meant to toast yourself when nobody else would.